The motorway rape case in Pakistan has shocked a nation, or has it? Is there anything shocking about yet another rape case in Pakistan? I've got Pakistani with me. It's Omar X. Thank you for talking to me about this topic. It's an important one. It's obviously an upsetting topic. How do you feel about it as a Pakistani?
Well,
Sorry,
I'm
Kashmiri.
obviously
I should get that right. You're pro-independence, I know. But as an Asian or as a Asian Muslim, how do you feel about yet another rape case?
uh, I'm obviously very hurt. Um, I feel saddened for the victims. In this particular case, we had three children who saw the rapist, and I'll fill in your listeners to what took place. A lady traveling at 12:30 from Lahore to Islamabad, I think, ran out of fuel on the motorway. And unfortunately, as the car halted, she rang the appropriate authorities. They said it's not our jurisdiction, it's Lahore's jurisdiction or Islamabad's jurisdiction. As she was on the phone, two men uh, tried to open the door. Thankfully, the doors were locked. They smashed the windows and unfortunately attacked this poor lady viciously. When the actual police officers were driving past, they realized that there's a car on the motorway with windows that are smashed. They investigated and asked, is there anyone, or loudly shouted, I guess, is there anyone near? Is there anyone here? Is there anyone in the woods? And they saw a child's shoe, and they decided to try to follow in that path, try to follow any noise that they could hear. The first thing they heard was, please leave me alone, I won't tell anyone. And they insisted that they are the police. She was in such a shock that I guess they all were in such a shock that they couldn't really trust anyone at that time. And with such, I think that the police officers threw their ID at the lady, and they somehow convinced her that they are the police, and ultimately they took this lady to the hospital and the kids. The sad thing took place subsequently, which
So,
was
Omar, just to clear up the matter, were these genuine officers or were these people impersonating the police?
the police officers were genuine.
Okay.
They were the motorway police. But because of the trauma, I'm not sure if the rapist, perhaps they did attempt to, and I assume they must have said that we are police officers, let us in, and then perhaps she just didn't feel comfortable, and it seems like a kind of I mean, it's terrible and it's difficult for us to really question because obviously we've never been in that sort of position. But the question arises: why was she reluctant to trust the police? And it may be because the people beforehand who committed that crime told her that they were police, perhaps. But what happened after the incident was I think they call them PCCO or something, the head man of the police service. He said, why was the lady out at 12:30? Which brought more fury amongst the Pakistanis. And this is where we are now.
So we've got victim blaming from a police officer. Omar, I don't know if you can see the comments because there's a comment come in, but I can't read it. You might be able to. Can you see the comments?
If you bear with me a second, I shall inform you of what the comments are.
We've got Omar X on the line, and we're talking about the motorway rape case in Pakistan. And already we've established that I don't want to say there's a culture of victim blaming, but it doesn't surprise me that someone would ask questions like, why was she out at such a time? What was she wearing? But women of all kinds, of all walks of life, in all manner of clothing, are victim of these sort of attacks, are they not?
Yes, they are. You have Abdul Ghani
Okay.
saying Masal Khair.
Okay, that's good evening. Okay, thank you.
I know you have a following over in Arabia.
Yeah,
Sadly,
we're international.
there is victim blaming, and I believe you lived in Pakistan, and I don't want to make this out to be a Pakistani thing. This takes
I lived
place
there for
everywhere.
I lived there for 2 weeks, but I managed to see the election. I was in Pakistan when Imran Khan won the election, and I'm not saying that there's. I think this could be in any country a culture or victim blaming. I'm not going to single out Pakistanis. We've got a visitor joining us. Welcome. Who's this?
Hey, my name is Mohammed.
Hello, Mohammed. Welcome along. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. I just stumbled.
Where are you stumbling from, if you don't mind us asking?
I was actually just searching on YouTube, and I.
Oh no, but are you in the UK? Are you in Pakistan? Where are you in the world?
I live in Denmark.
In Denmark. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. And in Denmark, are they aware of the motorway rape case that we're hearing about? Is it big news?
It's not big news, but I've seen that there's some articles that have been written about it, but it's not like it's not widespread, but it's going around.
May I ask, what's your cultural background? We'd like to get personal on this channel.
Yeah, no problem.
You can say.
Yeah, I'm Somali originally, but
you're Somali. Okay, great.
Yeah,
okay,
but I grew up in Denmark. I came here when I was very young, so.
Okay.
So I grew up here.
We get the impression that the Indian subcontinent has a terrible problem with women being abused. This is I've never been to India. I've been to Pakistan. In the 2 weeks I was there, I didn't see any women getting abused. But we get the impression that there's a terrible treatment of women over there. How are women treated in the Somali culture?
I guess it depends on the perspective, and what kind of topics you're talking about. To be honest with you.
Well, okay. I mean, I take it you're not a woman, but would you rather be a woman in Somalia or in Denmark, if you had to choose?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that. That's something
it may be that there's pros and cons. I mean, what I'm trying to get to here is this notion that a lot of Muslims will react when accused of having a misogynistic culture and say, but our women were given rights 1500 years ago that women didn't have in Europe and elsewhere, which I think is correct. But in the meantime, have other countries caught up and have they overtaken the Muslim culture and liberated women and treated them better than they're treated in these Muslim countries?
Yeah, I think definitely, you have to be open to acknowledging that there are probably issues in a lot of societies, and there's definitely room for improvement. There's no reason to shy away from that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
But I also think it's a very sensitive subject, because a lot of these things are very dependent on your ideological standpoints or your cultural practices. So it's very hard to get to the core without talking about, a lot of fundamental things, For example, I mean, a lot of Westerners would argue, for example, that the fact that a lot of Muslim women wear the hijab, they would say that's a symbol of oppression. Whereas in, a lot of Muslim countries, the fact that women are, how do I say, that they don't wear, they don't cover up, they would see that as a symbol of promiscuity. So there's a lot of cultural aspects to it. So I like to be I like to talk about things to the core. So you get away from the ego stuff, I'm better than you and that kind of stuff. So yeah, but I definitely agree that there are definitely room for improvement.
So
Omar X is coming back in, I think. Go on, Omar.
Yes, thank you. Good evening and assalamu alaikum to you from Denmark. I have a question for you, if I may.
Yes.
It's about a case that happened a few days ago. There was a young woman, a young girl rather, she was 4 years old, pretty much a baby, an infant. And she left her home with her cousin brother, and who was a grown man. And unfortunately, tragically, he raped her in a mosque. And then he left her in the washing ablution section. He left her there. And when the mother said to him, "Hey, where's my daughter? She went with you." And he said, "No, I saw her by the mosque." And when she entered the mosque and she saw the baby, she was in shock, of course. But and if I could just take the story a tad before what took place, this horrible human being, he was actually convicted. Well, he was caught partaking in rape 4 times. So this has happened 4 times before, and this is the 5th time that he had committed this, and everyone knew about this case. Now, this was in the news, and the same story that we have about the Motorway killing, and they know who the people are. They all said in the news today that these people had committed this. They have their DNA, and they had committed this crime or something alongside this. One of them, in fact, he, alongside 4 other people, burst into a house and he raped a daughter and a mother in front of the father. And once again, the case was quashed. Now, the reason the cases were quashed is because I'm not sure if it's called blood money, and I'm not sure what the correct term is. There is a term that they just kind of, maybe it's called hush money, I'm not sure. But is there something in Islam, you sound Islamic, is there something in Islam that allows people to kind of walk off scot-free? Because this has happened today with the Motorway case yesterday, and beforehand with the young lady's case as well. So both those perpetrators, both the rapists, had committed 4 or 5 rapes that we know
of. So your question was if there's something in Islam where people can, somebody could rape and then they could be exempt from punishment?
My question is there something called hush money? Is there something where you could pay off? Because in this case, they've said it on the news that this has happened 4, 5, or even 6 times. These people were caught doing what they did, and then the families sat down, and the news article that I heard from the lady speaking, she stated that, yes, this was my cousin, this was her cousin. He had been caught. He had done this 4 or 5 times before, but he had asked for forgiveness, and there was some sort, I don't know, Pakistani word that they use, that there was forgiveness done and they settled this. So basically, she said they settled the matter. So in Islam, it seems that you can get away with these types of things. Is this correct or is this untrue?
Honestly, as far as I know, I'm not a scholar. I don't have.
No, I'm not. I'm asking your opinion as a Muslim. I'm not asking you to give me a scholarly.
Okay. As far as I know, I don't think there's anything where you can get away with that kind of crime, like sexual crime, if you rape somebody. As far as I know, I don't believe there's something like that. I know if you murder somebody, I know that you can. If the family of the person that's been murdered, if they decide to forgive you, I know that there's a settlement there. But as far as I know, I don't believe there's anything like that where if you can rape somebody, you can get away with it. I don't believe that, and I don't think that doesn't sound right. But I think what I do know
in this case, the criminal murdered them as well, did he not? Did he? Or you're talking about a case where
just murder? Murder.
Yeah. No. Go on, Omar X. Well, there's so many cases. I don't know where to begin, but the cases that I've been watching the news on yesterday and even a few days before, we know about the mosque case where the 4-year-old was raped and killed in the mosque, in the masjid, and we know of the motorway case that took place. I believe yesterday.
All these religious rulings come down to interpretation. There is an option for the family of a murdered victim to accept money, I believe, and I'll call it. Sorry,
but my question is,
caller from Denmark. Is it Mohammed? Your name?
Yeah.
Mohammed.
But my question,
you're agreeing that does happen in murder cases sometimes, yeah?
Yeah. As far as I know, yeah, I believe there's an agreement, but that's something that would be initiated from the family of the person that's been murdered. But I don't believe that exists in rape.
There are also scenarios where the victim of a rape has ended up being accused of adultery or fornication, and this is because of some twisted interpretation of a rule that's been around for 1500 years. And I'm just wondering, is that part of the problem? People's interpretation of this ruling.
Yeah, I think what I was going to say was, I think where a lot of these issues stem from is there's a cultural stigma, particularly with women in a lot of these places, that it is even if a woman has been raped, there's some kind of shame to the family, you know. So what happens is that because of this happened, I mean, obviously everybody would agree that this is a heinous crime, but because of this cultural stigma, there's this kind of shameful feeling, and that leads to people ostracizing the victim, because even though she's been raped, it's like our honor has been desecrated because she's been raped. So those cultural tendencies are very problematic in my opinion, and I don't believe they have anything to do with Islam. I think it's probably people maybe misunderstanding, and then some cultural tendencies that's been developed over years. But definitely those things need to be addressed for sure.
Well, it's
and they might be.
Yes, I was going to say that it's difficult. You mentioned there is something referred to as blood money, and when somebody is killed in a family and people have accepted blood money, maybe 1500 years ago that was okay. People were in dire poverty, and if they didn't accept any money, they were probably gonna die. Today, I can't imagine anyone, once again, unless they're in dire poverty, that will accept any money for a life of their loved ones. But also my point would be, it's not in the institution of any Islamic country as far as I know, but would that be fair if a murderer attacks one of your family members and kills them, hypothetically speaking, and you then accept £1 million or £2 million? Then would that be fair that same murderer could enter my house and kill somebody from my family? So maybe it's one of those laws that perhaps needs to be eroded. Do you not think?
I think, as far as I know, this blood money thing, first of all, I think it happens very rarely, and second of all, I think people already disagree with the concept of somebody being punished on a capital for capital punishment for murder. I mean, most Western countries in Europe don't even have capital punishment. You get a prison sentence, and that person can be out and they can kill again. So the concept of blood money, as far as I know, is something which would be initiated by the family. So if they feel that they want to forgive this individual, they can accept a sum of money. Now, whether that's the right thing to do in that particular context, I really don't know. I mean, I have not had somebody from my family murdered. I don't know what that feels like, what that situation is like. So it's a sticky situation, but yeah, it's a complex one for sure.
Is part of the problem that 1500 years ago there were no prisons and you could not lock someone up for life? It wouldn't have been feasible.
Excellent point. That seems to be very likely. That even if they had prison, it would be very difficult to maintain that prison and to remain as a guard to the prisoners.
I mean, people had slaves, people had captives. It was not something that was completely, unheard of that people would be in
Well, they
confinement.
kept slaves. That's true. But
Yeah, people would be in confinement. So I don't think that was a completely strange thing. But maybe you have a point. Maybe we have a different justice system today. Yeah.
I wonder why enslavement wasn't a punishment then, or maybe it was. People were enslaved when they were held captive from war.
Yeah. That was something that was back then. Yeah, that
I
was
think
a norm.
with that, I think what we read of Prophet Muhammad, he would actually free many of them. He was very lenient towards them. In fact, some cases, the guards were upset that the prisoners were being treated better than they were in those circumstances. So I don't know if that was just what Muhammad, the Prophet, was doing, just sparing them, really, just keeping them, and then just trying to explain to them, look, we're not like that. We're not going around killing people, or whatever you've been told is untrue. We're out here trying to make peace with everyone. So maybe it was something like that. Ultimately, the ones that were taken were actually freed. We don't know of any cases that were where people were killed in that manner, as you would think. So I think prisoner of war was probably a metaphoric thing overall, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, I'm going to throw this one out there. I'm assuming that you gentlemen, and correct me if I'm wrong, believe that the appropriate punishment for murder would be the death penalty. Am I right?
With me, I'm not a particular huge fan of the death penalty. For one, we don't know. I guess nowadays with DNA and so on, so we have evidence, and it's difficult to mix the evidence up, and so I think everyone should be somehow held in prison, allowed an opportunity, the whole process of appeal, and so and all the opportunities any prisoner is afforded, even if they want to take the case to the Supreme Court, and they should be allowed to. Regarding cases of rape and so on, I do believe in the death penalty at that time, but not just a death penalty that they have in Texas or California. General Zia in the 70s in Pakistan, when he was in charge of the country, he actually took the rapist and he hung the rapist, and he left that rapist's body dangling for I don't know how many months. Now, there wasn't a single rape or a single murder in that country, as far as I know, for 15 years. And I heard this in the news. For 15 years, there was no raping whatsoever. And I'm pretty sure murder.
I'd have to check that with some statistics. But Mohammed, the death penalty, what do you think?
Yeah, I think what we do know, I think from empirical data, from history, is that capital punishment does work as a deterrent. Once
do we know that?
Well, I know there's exceptions. It depends on a lot of things. Obviously, if you have
the countries that have the death penalty have higher murder rates than the countries that don't.
And yes, you know what the reason
the
for
murder
that
rate
is?
in America is much higher than in the UK. UK doesn't have the death penalty. America does. I don't think
America is very different, though. America has different states. There's a lot of different rules, so it depends on which state you're in. And there's also this is what I was going to say is I believe in the capital punishment as long as the context is right. I don't believe in a capital punishment in a society where there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of social issues. There's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of cultural issues. I think once you get to a level in which the living standard of every person is at a level where it's acceptable, and there's education, and there isn't widespread social issues, I believe in the capital punishment in that
and there's
society.
no excuse. Okay, so you're saying the appropriate punishment for murder is to kill the person. What's the appropriate punishment for rape, like the motorway rape case?
Yeah, I think
well, I want to ask Mohammed first of all, Omar,
yes, please.
because he believes in the death penalty. What's the appropriate punishment for rape in that case, Omar? Sorry, Mohammed. Sorry,
Yeah, I also believe in the death penalty for somebody
for
who
rape.
forcibly
Okay.
rapes
What
somebody.
if you're going to kill the murderer? Why not rape the rapist? Is that not the same logic?
No, because I mean, if you want to say an eye for an eye, you could use that logic, but I don't believe in that.
Why don't you think that makes sense?
Um,
Why is that any different?
well, I mean,
If you deprive someone of their life, you kill them. If you deprive someone of their chastity or whatever it is, then deprive the rapist by raping him or her.
yeah,
No?
but yeah, if you follow
Castration.
that logic, you could. But I think, from my point of view, I believe that
Mm.
the death penalty, the capital punishment, death penalty is there in order to, first of all, it is there in order to secure the justice, the people that have been killed, and the second of all, it is there as a deterrent. And also, I believe that any form of punishment in a society should be a punishment which is not infringing upon the general morality that is set. So if somebody, for example, I mean, just to give an example, if somebody burns somebody to death and you say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, should we then use an eye for an eye and burn them to death? No, I don't believe that. I believe
Why not?
they should. Well, it's not that's not the understanding of the the eye for eye concept which people talk about. I don't believe in when people say an eye for an eye. I don't believe it in that literal sense, if you understand what I mean.
Mm.
I believe it in the sense of, obviously, if somebody has killed somebody, the capital punishment would be enforced, and that would people would consider that an eye for an eye. But the method in which they killed them in, if it's extreme, and if it's something that's something like, for example, burning, I don't believe that's the route that a society should take. And I also don't
Okay,
believe that is what the Islamic jurisprudence suggests. There's limits, there's constraints.
Okay, but you've suggested the capital punishment for rape. I don't know if that is in Islamic jurisprudence. I sense it might not be.
I believe it is. Yeah, I believe it is. I mean, I've seen, there's countries like, for example, in Yemen, where they
Okay,
enforce the
I may
capital
be wrong on
punishment
that one. Okay,
for
punishment.
rape.
So death penalty for murder, rape. Anything else that you're going to kill people for? I don't mean you personally, so I'm putting that very, very flippantly. But where do we draw the line?
I mean,
These are all terrible things. Rape is
yeah,
terrible. Murder is terrible. A
yeah.
lawyer might argue that rape is not as bad as murder. I don't want to sound like an apologist for rape, but we have to have some kind of scale here. Murdering two people is worse than murdering one person. What are you going to do? Kill them twice? What do you do with someone like
I mean, you
Hitler?
can't kill somebody twice, but
There you go. So how do we have justice when you can't commit an infinite amount of crime, but you're having a very final punishment for anyone that's over the? I mean, where's the line? Where do you draw the line? Is rape
well, I mean,
the minimum for the death penalty?
Yeah, well, the whole purpose of a death penalty is, this is why I said I believe in I believe in capital punishment only when the context is there. I don't believe in a death penalty in a society that's riddled with a lot of problems. The reason for that is that the people that would commit such crimes in a society where there's education, there's a good living, there's a good living standard, would be people that are genuinely hazardous to the society.
Okay.
And so when you do enforce the capital punishment, you are ensuring the safety of the rest of the society. It is not something that you would continue doing it, and it also serves as a deterrent. That is the whole purpose behind it. Yeah.
Mohammed, I'm going to press you more. I hope you don't regret joining this chat.
No, go on.
Thank you. Do you believe that when a person becomes Muslim, all their sins are forgiven? Straight away.
Yes.
You do. Okay. You can probably
Yes,
see
in
where
Islamic,
I'm going. In the Islamic sense. Can you see where I'm going with this?
No, because we. Wait, no, please tell me.
Okay, I'll carry on. How do you treat the, I don't know, let's say a Hindu rapist rapes someone, and in his cell he finds a copy of the Quran, likes what he reads, and becomes Muslim, his sin's been forgiven straight away, according to your belief. Are you still going to execute him?
No, there's a separation between, well, when we say somebody's sins has been forgiven, we are talking about in the sense of, from a spiritual sense. So, for example, there's people that do commit crimes, right? And they could be in captive, let's say, and they're awaiting the death penalty, and they seek forgiveness, for example, from, say, the family, and they seek forgiveness from God. They could be forgiven, right, in the spiritual sense, but the punishment will still be carried out. So the forgiveness is from a spiritual sense, but it's not.
Is that not where the wisdom lies in having the option of blood money, so that the family have the option to forgive this person?
Yeah, but they could also forgive them in the sense of.
But still kill them.
Yeah. But they could also say, look, you've committed this crime, but I don't believe.
So this person has become Muslim. They are free of any sin in the eyes of God. You kill them because they committed a rape before they were Muslim, and presumably they go straight to heaven because they haven't committed any more sins since they became Muslim following their crime.
Look, I don't, honestly, I mean, this is something that's hypothetical. I really don't know.
It is, I know.
I don't know if that's the case. I don't know what would happen. I'm not that, knowledgeable on this topic, to be honest with you.
That's okay. As I say, sorry to pick on you. I'm just creating a hypothetical scenario just to see where we go with it.
Honestly, I would say just as a heads up, I'd say I'm not sure 100% on this topic. I don't know if that's what happens. And the
I'm asking your opinion. What do you think happens, or what do you feel would be right? Because obviously, the picture I painted, you sense there's something wrong with it because it doesn't make logical sense. But yet, this is what's taught in the religion, isn't it?
No, but you're asking
become Muslim, sins completely forgiven.
No, but you're asking me about it. You're asking about theological question, which, as I said, I don't know everything about it. I just know on a surface level on this particular topic. So from that angle, I would have to say, look, I really don't know the complexities and what happens and exactly the detail of that particular context which you gave, or the hypothetical situation you gave, where somebody is a Hindu, they become Muslim, they've just raped. What happens to them? I actually don't know, to be honest with you.
That's all right. That's fine. I heard it put this way once by a sheikh, I can't remember who. He said, if you become Muslim, all your sins are forgiven straight away. But if you owe someone money, you still have to pay the money. Right?
Okay. Right.
Your debts don't disappear. So and here we bring up the money issue again, but you still owe, you need to atone for your crime. And if you did become a Muslim, I imagine you would be in terrible horror about the atrocities that you committed before, and you wouldn't just be saying, well, that's okay, I didn't know what I was doing, I was in Jahiliyyah. I'm sure you would have a terrible conscience. But isn't the point here that anyone can be forgiven if they are truly sorry? And if you were truly sorry for committing an atrocious crime like the one we're talking about tonight, you might feel like, I need to be executed to make the atonement.
If you have a conscience,
I don't know. If you have a conscience, I've seen a video of a murderer or a rapist, I think, at the point of being hanged in Iran, where they have public executions, and at the last moment, the mother of the victim says stop, and she slaps the criminal and says, I forgive you, and he's free, and he doesn't get killed. But they took it to the point of
the
him.
Problem with that, sorry to interrupt, Julian, but the problem with that is that person, the Iranian mother forgave, can go out and commit another crime.
Right.
He's been close to death, but that doesn't mean he's changed. So I know at that time, I know Jamal Khashoggi's kids have forgiven some of the killers, but that law was for a different time. There's no need for us to be forgiving. If that's the law, capital punishment, she should know that, hold on, if I forgive this guy, he may well, and he's going to walk free, he's going to go and commit this again. And how would that make me feel? So I don't want to put any other family through what I've gone through and allow this to happen. You mentioned America a little while ago, and you said that America has capital punishment, and yet their crimes are still prevalent and people are shooting one another and killing one another. Yes, they do have capital punishment, but where is that punishment held? It's held behind closed doors. If they were to bring the rapist or the murderer out to Dallas, town's downtown center, and if they called all his friends and all his family members and everyone he grew up with and everyone he worked with and everyone he knew in the whole town, all history and the neighborhood, and if everyone came out to see that pedophile and that rapist and that murderer be killed publicly, I assure you, none of those people will ever do anything of that nature again. That the crime will reduce immediately, but that's capital punishment. The Islamic law is public capital punishment.
Mohammed, what do you think about that?
Can I ask you a
Public
question? Sorry.
execution. Yeah, go for it.
So the context which you were painting for me earlier were you trying to say that since there is a method or process of forgiving, say for example a murderer, that it should and somebody can be very guilty about what they've committed, that it should not be a final punishment, like for example the capital punishment, but it should be something a little bit less, maybe some kind of spiritual punishment? Is that what you were trying to insinuate?
I mean, personally, I think the appropriate punishment for murder in a civilized society is life imprisonment, lifetime incarceration. And you pointed out a very good point, by the way, about slavery being prevalent 1,500 years ago, and people were in captivity. I was thinking there weren't purpose-built prisons, and there wasn't an institution of imprisonment. But you mentioned slavery, which is a very good point. So I'm at a loss to explain why the death penalty was appropriate then and is not now. I think it's a sign of a barbaric society when you have the death penalty, and that we shouldn't kill people because we should be better than murderers. But life imprisonment is the most extreme punishment that we have. I don't think that death penalty is a deterrent for people that commit murder. Most people that commit murder probably commit it out of anger and rage, or out of desperation for money or food or drugs, most likely. And I don't think people hanging in the street will prevent any murders. I think it will just bring one more murder into that civilization.
I actually think, if you look at a society like Saudi Arabia, and I know I'm just saying like I don't agree everything with that in that society, but I'd like to use it as an example because the society is structured in a way which the living standard is fairly okay, and
well, it's one of the richest countries in the world. It's the richest country in the region, isn't it?
It is exactly, and
vastly resource rich.
Yeah, education levels are also good, and the society is based on
women can drive nowadays.
Yeah, that's a new one. Yeah, but the society is based on Islamic cultural principles, if you want to say it like that.
Is it Islamic to bomb the hell out of a country next door while they're suffering a famine?
Well, that's not what I mean. Like, I'm not talking about foreign policy. I'm just let's just remove the name Saudi Arabia and let's just say the society, just the structure. That's just because I don't have any other better example.
Okay, but what's different about the culture in Saudi Arabia than, say, Oman next door that hasn't invaded anybody or attacked anyone?
I actually don't know much about Oman's system, to be honest with you. I don't know system. But I know
it's another Gulf state monarchy. It's very
yeah.
peaceful. It hasn't invaded anybody. It doesn't
But yeah, I was
oil
not talking
to
about
America.
I was not talking about Saudi Arabia as a country, just more as a society, just a societal structure. That's all I'm interested in.
Okay, but
Because
I'm saying the society structure in Saudi Arabia
Yeah.
is the same in Oman, is the same in Yemen, is the
Okay.
What's the difference?
Okay, let's just say Oman then, just because the point which I wanted to make was
Okay, go on then.
the countries in which there is capital punishment and the societal structure is in a way in which people values and ideas are, a particular set of ideas, which in this context would be Islamic, right, or Muslim, let's just say. In that kind of context, death penalty or capital punishment for murderers actually works. And you look at the murder rates, they're very
What makes you think it's the death penalty that's working? Because there's other countries that have the death penalty as well, and Muslim countries have it as well. Might it not be the other teachings of Islam? There's many
that's the point.
words of wisdom in the Quran. Why are you imagining that the death penalty is the bit that is helping a country do well?
No. I'm not saying it helping the country do well. What I'm saying is, which context does the capital punishment work as a deterrent? That's the point which I'm trying to make. Because you mentioned like, a civil society, you said, where we shouldn't have death penalty. But you have to look at the context, right? If the people believe in certain values and ideas and they value those things, right, in that society, in this context, it would be, let's say, an Islamic society or Muslim society, death penalty works in these kinds of contexts. It really does as a deterrent. I'm talking about it just as a deterrent. I'm not saying there aren't situations where death penalty just simply does not work. And that is why I said earlier, I only believe in capital punishment. So as long as the context is right. So as long as
I think you believe in it because your interpretation of Islam is that the death penalty is somehow included or is a must within the Islamic faith. I think that these countries that are doing well, that happen to have the death penalty, are maybe doing well because of other teachings found in the Quran and not the death penalty, which is found in many countries, found in America, the States, in South America, many places. And the more advanced countries, the countries, I don't know why your family moved from Somalia to Denmark, and I'm sorry to be personal, Mohammed. You've been so kind to get involved in this debate. I'd just like to shake things up a little bit. But somewhere like, do they have the death penalty in Somalia? I imagine they might do.
Yeah, they do. They do, yeah.
Okay. And Somalia is an absolutely lawless country at the moment, unfortunately.
Right.
Denmark don't have the death penalty. It's calmer and safer than Somalia. Now, that's because it's a richer country. That's not because it doesn't have the death penalty.
Yeah,
but you will notice the countries that don't have the death penalty are doing better than the countries that have it. Now, I'm not saying one causes the other, and you're saying it.
I'm not sure I agree with that assessment.
Go on.
I'm not sure I agree with that assessment. And the point which I was trying to make was not that if you have the death penalty, then you will do better. That was not the point.
Okay.
Sorry. The context in which I am saying capital punishment will work as a deterrent is, for example, let's say in an Islamic society, right? Where people believe in the values and the ideas of, say, what Islamic, generally speaking, it doesn't have to be a particular interpretation. Let's just say in general sense, right? And in that sense, so people believe obviously that murder is wrong. And like I said, the context has to be right. I believe that there has to be a level of education. People don't have to be desperate and poverty riddled, etc. If you have that kind of society where there's predominantly people are peaceful and they believe in these values and they believe in these ideas and they're educated, enlightened, then the people that do cause issues, say the murderers, the rapists of the society, it works to enforce something like the capital punishment as a deterrent. It works. And the end goal as well is to ensure the safety of the general society. So the majority of the people of the society who want to live a normal life lead a safe life, these kinds of people don't have to be on the street roaming and causing havoc. So that's what I was saying, is that the context in which I believe capital punishment works, because I mean, you mentioned that the countries that do very well don't have the capital punishment. I mean, America do have the capital punishment.
Well, yeah,
right?
with the notable exception of America, who are backward, and not all states in America, by the way, not all states.
Not all states, that's true. But America is probably the most advanced country in the world if you just look at it in a very general sense, right? Technologically.
Well, I think it's one of the most barbaric countries in the world. They have the death penalty. They've killed more people than anyone since Hitler killed millions. So I think they're a terrible example of a country.
So when you say they've
and I
killed more
would much
people, are you
rather
talking
live in
about foreign policy?
Denmark. Yeah, foreign policy.
Well, I mean, Denmark was also part of the Iraq War. UK was also part of the Iraq War, for example.
But they didn't instigate it, did they? They went over the hill.
Well, nobody forced
over
Denmark
the cliff with them.
Yeah, nobody forced Denmark to be part of that coalition, Iraq coalition. There was only a select few countries.
Well, that's very bad that they did that, but they haven't been responsible for as many wars as America. But it's shameful that they joined in with that war.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that.
It's shameful that the UK did against the will of the people. We had 1 million people marching on the streets against it. I'm sure there was similar protests, just as there would have been in America. I'm not saying Americans are all with this, but no. The more advanced countries. I'm not sure what I mean exactly by that. But look, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you very much. What
topic? I hope we're going to do this again. And is there any topic you'd like us to pick up next time? Give us a request, and maybe we can set up a debate.
You know what? Something that I really enjoy talking about, and I think it's probably more positive than other topics that people talk about when they talk about Muslims in the West. I really like to talk about the cultural tendencies, in the sense of like behavioral patterns that you see in the East and the West, positives, pros and cons. So for example, I've noticed, like, I live in Denmark. One of the things that is very common among Danes is they're very punctual. Like, they will always come on time. They respect formalities. Whereas my Somali side, everybody is very lax. So if somebody says we're going to meet at 7 p.m., that means 8:30. So that's something I've noticed. That's something very positive in the Danish culture. But then there's other things, obviously, that I really like to I think that's an interesting subject. And you can learn a lot from people that way, because you can see the positives of other cultures and look at the more negative things of your own culture.
Is that a Scandinavian thing, do you think?
I think it's actually a European thing. Like, most liberal Western secular societies, the structure, they have that respect for formalities. Like, my friend was getting married in Morocco, and he said, so he was marrying a Moroccan woman, and he said they came to the court at 10 a.m. and the judge came at 1 p.m. So he was on a break for 3 hours. I mean, that would never happen in a Western society, right?
Oh, wow.
So that was just an interesting observation.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I've heard it said recently that the concept of deferred gratification is regarded as a Western trait and is not something that other cultures have as much. And I was wondering, did the societies, especially in Scandinavia and Northern Europe, in order to survive the winter, you would have to prepare and save food and be very strict about what you used and what you didn't, whereas in parts of Africa and other hotter countries, the surroundings are more plentiful all year round, so you don't need to have this sort of discipline, and people didn't become as forward planning as they were in Europe. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. Yeah, that probably does make a lot of sense, to be honest.
What are you thinking, Omar X? Are the Europeans better at planning?
I would say that the Muslims overall, although perhaps they don't know it, they are very punctual. I've seen Muslims in Ramadan break their fast to the second, not to the minute, and open their fast to the second, not the minute. I've seen Muslims partake in Muslim prayers to the second, Jum'ah, and all the 5 daily prayers that they have. So I think it's a human thing. I wouldn't say it's a European thing necessarily. I think you have people that are late. The judge that was mentioned, yes, perhaps he was 3 hours late, but I'm sure there was some reason. But the next day, the following day, you could meet a judge who would be an hour early, perhaps. So I think if you ask me, I think it's individuals that have a timing system mechanism made inside them. It's the human clock that makes people be on time or be late.
All right, fair enough. Well, gentlemen, it's been marvelous for me, and Mohammed, I hope you'll catch us again. Yeah, you've subscribed and hit the notification bell. Yeah.
Yeah, I've subscribed. I will.
Brilliant. Yeah, superb. Thank you very much, and share us far and wide in Denmark.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Much appreciated, bro. Thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
MRX, thank you to you as always. It's been Lessons for Life, and we'll do it all again soon. We were here. We're gone. Later.